Close Racing Supply in Eldred, Pennsylvania has been in business since 1996, serving the motorsports industry with quality parts for dirt late models, modifieds, and stock clip race cars. In stock are parts from top manufacturers like All-Star Performance, Weir's Machine, Sweet Manufacturing, Winner's Performance, Willwood Brakes, and many others. CRS is also home of CRS Race Components, providing top-quality suspension parts. Orders are shipped out daily using UPS, FedEx, and truck freight. Find out more at closeracingsupply.com.
Let's go. Look, on the set, ready to flow. Kicking up dust, spinning tires. It's a dirt track show. Lenses, focus, inches rolling, feel that adrenaline. Capture moments, freeze frames.
All right, welcome everybody back again for another episode of the Woah Show presented by Great Lakes Speed Shop. Make sure you go see Bud and the gang today. Get you fast for the 2025 season. And all of our other sponsors, you'll hear from them later in the show. Before we introduce our guest, I have to say, go Bonnies, 10-1 on the season. Recording this right now as they play Siena tonight, but I wanted to plug my winter gig here. 10-1 on the season. Bonnie's best season since I think the 60s or the 50s, something like that, like the best start. So that's cool. Get a little plug. All right, back to racing now. Joining us today on the show, a up-and-comer in the Rush Late Model division. Welcome to the show, Ben Easler. How's it going, man?
Not so bad, you?
It's this weather is just playing with my feelings around here. So there's that. I just want it to be racing season. So hey, Ben, you know, we talk a lot at the racetracks. You're one of my favorite people to stop by and harass at wherever we end up. It always seems like we always end up in the most random places wherever you show up and I show up. So let's start. You know, a lot of people like listening to where people started in racing. And I guess, how'd you start? What got you into this? Where'd you start your journey?
Well, my dad, he used to race, he actually used to race mini stocks back in the day. He ran a lot at like Raceway 7, Erie's a couple times, Sharon a couple times. He didn't really venture out a whole lot, but, you know, ever since I could breathe, you know, I always wanted to be at the racetrack and watching him. You know, then you get to a certain point, you get the yard cart, you know, he's ripping around the yard, and it's like, man, you keep going to the racetrack, it's like, this is something you really want to do. But I guess I never really understood when I was a kid, you know, how to get into it or what the deal was. And my dad, you know, the go-karting scene, he kind of just came in. I think I was 6, 7 years old. He came into the kitchen one day and he was like, hey, you want to race go-karts? And I was like, well, yeah. So, you know, you get into racing go-karts, and I think we started out just racing some old, I think it was 2008 Phantom Icon, which is still getting raced today. I think we sold it to the Gibsons, actually, and I think one of their buddies still have it, and I think it still races today. But we started doing that, and we run Slippery Rock weekly. And then we started venturing out and racing like State Line. Erie's, back when they still had go-karts. I actually got my first win there. And then got a newer stuff, started racing the Vega Money Series Tour. That was fun. Then just traveling all around and until it was time to move up.
So you moved up. What was your first class? Because I only really started paying attention to you when you were doing some Rush Sportsman stuff. And then obviously the late model thing, you finally started coming to my neck of the woods more often because the Rush Sportsmen, now they're coming to State Line. Be nice to have some races on your home turf, home-ish turf. But what was that transition like moving up from a go-kart? What things did you take from karts that you still use in a big car? You know, whether it be driving or something else? And what are some of the major differences between the two? I always like hearing it because I've asked this to a couple people, and it seems like they all have a different opinion on it.
Well, I mean, for me, I got really lucky in the situation that I fell in with the Kings, being able to drive one of Russell's Sportsman's. So they definitely helped make my transition as easy as possible. They gave me great equipment. They were awesome to work with. Russ and I kind of clicked right away, and we were able to, I think coming from the go-kart perspective, it's something that I've noticed where I've struggled sometimes when the racetrack's more hammered down is too straight, too late. So driving go-karts, obviously, you're not really, you don't have that sideways look like all these, late models and stuff have. So you're trying to keep them real straight. So, I mean, when it comes to the dry slick stuff, that's where I thrive. I'm so good at that. But I always, when the racetrack's real tacky and hammered down, I've noticed that racing full-size cars, I've actually had to free up more than most people do just for that reason. So, I mean, the transition, it's just The modifieds really aren't not that tricky to drive. The center steer cars are. I mean, at least the sportsmans. I can't speak on big blocks, but the sportsmans are kind of in a way like a big go kart. You just want to keep them as straight as possible, well, especially with that small motor, and just keep momentum built. A lot of the crate stuff. That's all it is, just momentum based. So I think going from go karts to mods was probably, if you were going to do it, would be the easiest way to transition. Going from mods to late models, that's a whole different ball game. I'll tell you, the transition from go-karts to mods was actually easier than the transition from mods to late models. But like I said, Russ King put me in a great position to succeed racing mods. And getting out of go-karts, I've always wanted to race late models, so that was kind of the plan, was to find a way to race late models. We went over one day to Russ's shop when I was probably 13 and had a long talk about, just racing in general and kind of what we wanted to do and what my future plans were. And it started out just racing sportsman mods with his lease deal, and that ended up working out great. And now he's got so many kids like myself racing out of his shop who are also doing very well. So he definitely helped me big time there. Moving up into late models, even though I'm not driving one of his cars, he still plays a big factor in that deal as well. But definitely the transition from mods to late models was harder. I mean, it's a race car, so at the end of the day, it does race car things. But I mean, just the way the suspension is and the way those cars turn in. I mean, the speed differential really isn't that big. I mean, it's a little bit different, but mainly just corner entry is completely different. It's a lot harder to get those late models to kind of set into the corner and get down compared to the mods. But it's definitely been fun to try and learn. And I mean, you can still. I mean, we had at the end of the year, we had speed. We even got to win one out of Erie's, but still, some nights it still feels like I have no idea what I'm doing. So it's all just part of the process.
I think crate late model racing is maybe one of the hardest things that we do in motorsports. And that's not saying that any other discipline in any other class is harder. I think that, you know, and I'm a big UMP modified guy. E-mods are, I think they are they are better than sliced bread, whatever. But if you wanted to go look at the difficulty level of our current, even in our region, and I'm sure down south, it's even more competitive, more difficult. Up here, you have just names upon names. Like if you finish top 15 around here, all right, we're doing good, and especially for someone in their first year, and we'll get to your first win in a second, but you can go out at the same place and win a feature one night, and the next night you're running alphabet soup to try to make the feature and not change a thing, and the track could be the same thing. That's how close these guys are. It's a very driver setup maybe, but a lot of driver goes into it too. And if you're off just a little bit, it's pretty impressive what these guys do. And our number one guy in the Woah Nelly drivers program, Austin Hauser, has been with us forever. We've seen the ups and downs with it too. How miserable and how rewarding it can be throughout a season. So going into such a competitive division like that, and the sportsman modifieds are no joke too. They got some absolute, killers in that division too, and it's one of my favorite divisions. Again, I'm glad we're getting them up here at State Line. I think they're going to put on a great show for our Mod Madness. But jumping into the Rush Late Model division, how, like, you're lining up with some of the best in the area. How do you like contain yourself, and does it ever feel like that night when you won? Usually you're like, what am I doing here? How does it feel to line up against those guys and be up there running with them?
Well, I'll tell you this: when it came to the sportsman deal, when I first started racing them, the big hitter was Chaz Wolbert, and then he went big block racing, and then he came back, and now he's still dominating just like he was when he left off. But having guys like him, Justin Shea, Tony Tagenhorst, I mean, they all were just wheels. Garrett Crummer. So the first year in sportsman, I mean, the class was it was unreal. And my second year when we won the championship, you still had, a lot of those guys didn't run weekly, but when they would show up, it definitely would make me a little bit more nervous, and being able to compete and even beat those guys was pretty cool. But now, so when it came to the sportsman deal, there would be 5 or 6 dudes who were just studs who could win on any given night. Well, now you talk about the Rush Tour, there's like 30. And even the Rush Tour, I mean, you talk about all these guys who are just incredible race car drivers. You come back and race some of the weekly series stuff, like the local stuff at Erie's, Raceway 7, State Line, there are still so many heavy hitters who run just the regional stuff and not even on the tour, which makes it's you think about not coming home instead of not run the tour and just running weekly shows, thinking I'm just going to come in here and whoop all these guys. Well, it's not the case because the regional guys are some of the best wheels I think the country has to offer as well. I think the Rush series is no joke, and the crate racing around here is top tier. So racing against these guys weekly, like Jeremy Wonderling, Dave Hess, Bryce Davis, Bam Bam, he's just a kid and he's out there. We want the best of him too. So he does a great job. And all these guys, I mean, I'm sure I'm missing a ton of them, but it's awesome to get to wheel them, especially some of these guys that, I grew up watching, being able to wheel side by side with them and pick their brains a little bit in the pit area. And, most of these guys are all super cool. So they'll all talk to you and very respectful race car drivers. Winning at Erie's was pretty cool. Jason Janko, I mean, he was not very happy at my comments saying that I've been watching him ever since I was a kid. Said it made him feel old, but I guess I'm not that old myself. So Jason, if you're listening to this, you're not that old. We were leading that race until I think lap 16 or 17 when that yellow came out, and I looked up the scoreboard and seen 29J, and I knew I was in for it. And he made me work for it, that's for sure. But beating a guy like that and him racing me with tons of respect is really cool.
You were running away that night. It was one of my few trips to Erie's that we got to go out, and it was super cool to see you win one. I'm just watching you progress over the season, and getting the first one is always the hardest, and you got it out of the way super easy. In those closing laps, what are you thinking? What are you going through your brain here? Because you one slip up to Jason Janko, he's taking you to Gapplebee's, right? He gets by you, he's gone. Here, they're gone. And that's how it is in crates. That's how good everybody is. One mistake is the difference between you and him being out of here. So those last couple laps got to be nerve-wracking. What was going through your head?
Well, I knew in the beginning to the middle when we had that long green flag run, I knew that some of the heavy hitters were starting, in like Jason. I knew I think he started third or fourth row or something like that. So I knew as long as I got out, I was going to be okay, and I did right off the rip. So we had that long green flag run. I was just focused on just hitting my marks. And for the longest time, I was like, man, I'm going to get lucky, and this thing's just going to go green the checkered. And when that yellow came out with just a couple to go, that's when I started to get a little bit nervous. We had that one restart, and I seen him blast the top right before that caution came out, and I was like, well, I don't want to leave the bottom because we were so good down there, but I didn't just want to give him the top and watch him blow by me. So definitely had to get a little bit wide and start opening up my entry and then getting down to the bottom to try and cut his run a little bit. A lot of strategy went into that, just getting wide and blocking per se. I mean, I think the bottom still ended up being the better line in that deal, but he's just such a talented race car driver that he was able to make the top work too. So I knew that if I just hit my marks and did what I needed to do, I should be okay. And I mean, definitely was a little bit nervous, but at the end of the day, you just got to kind of settle in and just focus on hitting your marks and doing the right things.
So you did a lot of traveling here in your first year. I know we saw each other all over God's green earth. Going to all these different racetracks, what kind of learning experiences was it? First year in a late model, you said it was pretty hard to go from a mod to a late model. What kind of things did you learn along the way? What tracks did you like? What tracks did you maybe not like so much? Every time out on the track's a learning experience, but what are some of the big lessons that you learned here in your first year?
Definitely the biggest difference racing-wise, like on the racetrack, from mods to late models, is how much more aggressive you need to be. And I'm not talking just blasting it in there and driving into somebody's door. Just if you don't make that move, somebody else is going to, and it's going to come at your expense. There's been times where I've screwed myself out of transfer spots by not being aggressive enough and someone else making a move and falling back. Taking advantage of every opportunity you have, especially on restarts, is really important. Most of the racetracks we went to, I really enjoyed. It's really cool going to a bunch of places that you've never been to. In the times where, maybe I wasn't the biggest fan of the racetrack that we were at, most of the time it was weather-based. Like, we got hammered with rain, and really, there's not a whole lot as a racetrack you can do. I think we went out to McKean County, and I've heard good things, but we go out there after they get dumped on with rain. It's kind of one lane around the bottom. So you have a deal like that, but that's not really a racetrack's fault when you get hammered with rain 3 days before the show. and you're trying to get a rush tour race in. Really, I mean, all these racetracks were pretty good. The hospitality was great. Everybody that Vicky works with these racetracks are all awesome. A lot of those New York tracks are really cool. I really liked Outlaw. Obviously, Lernerville, we raced there. Tri-City was cool to go to. We raced there in the mod, and getting to go there was pretty cool. I would have liked to get to Tyler County, but we got rained out every time. I'd love to get a tour race at Sharon, but I don't think it's going to happen. That would be really cool. But we really seem to struggle at Pittsburgh. I don't know why. We just couldn't get that place figured out. Towards the end of the year, we started getting it, but even still wasn't where we needed to be. But you talked about how close everybody is. We went out there. My first ever race in a late model was at Pittsburgh for their first tour race, and I think we were 3/10 off the leader in qualifying. And you think that's not that far off until you're sitting 40th and on the board, and it's like, wow, everyone's really that close. But all the racetracks were cool. I really like traveling around. I don't really have any complaints when it comes to that deal. I also think when it comes to the tour, you get a different racetrack on tour nights than you get with any other night just because of how many cars are on the racetrack. The racetrack's always different. Like, we went to State Line a couple times this year, and there were some times where the racetrack would have a lot more bite to it, like on non-tour nights. I mean, we were out there for our tour night, and in qualifying, you're tiptoeing around the bottom just trying not to wheel spin. So, I mean, these racetracks are always a lot different on tour nights, so it's kind of hard to judge a racetrack that you've never been to and try and speculate what that racetrack is like when it's obviously a lot different when you unload there with 50-some cars or however many on the tour compared to just a normal night.
Yeah, we always say that about State Line, that it's always really different, when we have these big events and more cars. It's not your regular State Line, but let me tell you, it throws a lot of the locals for a loop, too. So, like, that home field advantage really kind of, I wouldn't say it gets wiped away, but they still have to make some adjustments they wouldn't normally make on a normal night to, normally see. Hey everybody, Woah Nelly from the future here. As you can tell, I'm wearing something completely different. This Caden Bush, Carpy's Print Company original hoodie, and the Woah Nelly hat. And it's also daytime, so that's how you know it's a little bit different. We just want to make sure we thank our 2024 partners for the season and everything they do for us. Without them, we don't get to do all this amazing stuff that we get to do, whether it's promoting races, covering racing all over. They make it a lot easier for us, and, helping them out, whether we give them photos or, whatever we can do for them to also keep the cycle going, to make sure we are always giving back while they are giving back to us, if that makes sense. Anyways, let's start with our premium sponsors. First off, Carpy's Print Company, the best damn print company in the land. They make our awesome checks for all of our races. Every single time they make a new check for us, it's always the best one since the last one. Those guys are amazing. Also, they make the best hats. They fit. Even the beanies. They fit my big head. If you got a big head like me and you don't like a beanie that sweatbands, not just to promote my own stuff, these things don't do that. But they also make some of the best hoodies. They always are, I always say, fat guy friendly. They're a little bit bigger, a lot cozier. If Carpy doesn't do it, you don't need it. Close Racing Supply also was our headlining sponsor for the 5th anniversary Woah Nelly race at McKean County Raceway. They provide parts from all over the country from the leading manufacturers of dirt racing parts. So if you need to pick up one of those or some of their original parts, they fabricate stuff in their shop too, and it's the best. It's some of the best stuff you can get in the region. Not even just the region, nationally. If you look at some of their posts and see who's winning with their stuff and some of their customers, man, it's a who's who of using Close Racing Supply. So if you're looking to improve your game in 2025, make sure you stop by either their store in Eldred, or you can shop them online and get it shipped, so you can just do it from the comfort of your home. Great Lakes Speed Shop is your podcast sponsor for 2024. They present this particular show right here, and also they were a secondary sponsor to our races. But the gang makes sure you are going fast, whether it's a modified, late model, or what have you. But we'll get you going in the right direction for the 2025 season. Check them out. Martin Dynamics is your premier source for suspension components. If you see a guy up front, it's probably a Martin Dynamics guy. These guys have it figured out. Suspension is the most important part of the game today. So make sure you go check out Martin Dynamics. They're some of the greatest people that we get to work with. And man, those guys over there, geniuses. I have no idea. We don't race cars here. We just make them look fast. But we know how important suspension is. It's probably the most important part of any race car currently today. And the Mountain 106.3, our marketing partner, they helped us out with doing some stuff for the Smithport McKean County deal. Without them, we wouldn't be able to get more butts in seats and reach an entire demographic that we wouldn't be able to. So if you're looking to get your business promote or product or brand out in front of some people, make sure you go check out the Mountain today and what they can do for you. And let's go get back to that conversation. I guess that's a really good perspective that I don't think we've covered that yet here on the show about how much it changes for these different series. Because I mean, I've seen it a couple times at State Line when we've had a bonkers amount of race cars. So Ben, let's talk a little bit more about your future. What are your future plans for 2025? More of the same?
Well, I really haven't gone out and announced this yet. I mean, some people know, some don't. But we are going to Florida, to Volusia, here in the end of January. So I don't know if we'll get it out before your podcast does, but we are definitely going to go to Volusia. So I'm really excited for that, to go spend a week down there. And then after that, just continue to do what we did this year, just run all the tour races, and when we're not on the tour, come back and race wherever we can. I have a lot of fun coming back home and getting to race some of our local racetracks when you have all the stress of a tour race and everything's so quickly paced between hot laps, qualifying, heat races. Like, you have no time to actually sit around and kind of enjoy what you're doing when it's that much of a rush. Where you come back home and you get to race like Raceway 7, State Line, Erie's, you get to relax a little bit and just have fun. I like doing that because we get to try different things that we wouldn't typically try on the tour. Because if we run bad, we're not out anything. Where on the tour, you don't want to take massive swings because you don't want to put yourself in a position to be behind the 8 ball all night. So with these just weekly series shows, that's where we like to go and fine tune our stuff and try different things. But we'll definitely, when we get back from Volusia, set our sights on the Rush Tour. First tour race will be at Bridgeport in New Jersey for $10,000 to win. So that's really exciting. I like to start the season off that way, but just kind of the same deal as last year. Then maybe at the end of the year, get out to Charlotte and stuff like that. My schedule is a lot more open now that I'm not playing football. So some of these nights where it's a Friday night, and whether it's a tour, I think we only missed 1 or 2 tour races because of football. But some of the more weekly series shows at the end of the year on Friday nights we'll be able to make now because I'm not playing football anymore. Obviously, I'm going to miss playing ball, but I'm excited to be able to just put my 100% focus in my program.
So you touched on wanting to run at Sharon. If there was a racetrack you can run or wanted to run, is it Sharon? Especially right now, if you had the choice right now, say, all right, we're going here. We're going to unload.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of bucket list racetracks that I'd like to race at. Like, obviously, like Eldora. I think it would have been really cool to get to go to East Bay. And there's a lot of different racetracks like that are bucket list racetracks. But around here, if I could get a Rush Tour event anywhere, it'd be Sharon. Just because I love the facility, I love the racetrack. We always did super well there in the mods. So I would have loved to get to race a late model there. So I'm still working on Willoughby. I'm trying to get a show there, but I don't think it's going to happen in the near future, but we'll see. I'd love to. But definitely Sharon Speedway if I had the choice to race a late model anywhere on the tour.
Sharon was very, very good for the Rush late models, for the racing wise. I remember watching, I think me and my dad went out there the one night, and this was way before Woah Nelly was anything, so we were sitting watching in the stands, and I think we watched Chubb just charge through the field and win. I think that, if I'm remembering correctly, yes. I remember just being like, wow, dude, growing up, he was like one of the best in the area, and watching him still be able to hang with all them youngins, showing them what's up.
So that was my first year racing mods when they had their last tour race there, and I remember watching Michael Norris beat the brakes off the wall, just riding it all the way around. He'd back that thing into the pit entrance and purposely like hit his quarter off the wall and straighten it back out. It was pretty wild. And then Chubb charged through the field and ended up winning it, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, I do remember that. Sharon Speedway always put on a great show with the great late models. I'd love to get a race there.
It's such a nice facility too. When you go there, you're just like, wow, this is, they take really good care of it. It's one of those places. I'm a big Homer guy. I'm always a State Line, Freedom, McKean, Bradford guy where I'll tell you, oh, all day I'll go there. But man, that's a place that's got to be on the bucket list for most people if you get a couple times a year to travel. It's on the same level, I would say, as a facility and quality of racing as a place like Port Royal, or Lernerville. I know Port Royal is almost like a NASCAR facility now, but for dirt racing, which is crazy. But we're going to move on here. Towards the end, we've been trying to do these fast 5 questions. So we give you 5 quick questions. You just say what comes to your brain here. And we'll go first with, who is your favorite race car driver ever? You can upset some people with this one.
Favorite race car driver ever? Shoot. Like local guy or like full blown?
It is your number one guy that you have ever had, that if you had to pick one guy that is your ride or die, this is your guy.
A ride or die? Shoot. That's such a hard question. I've never really had. There's guys that I'm big fans of, and there's guys that I'm not big fans of. When I was younger, I don't know. When I was younger, probably I think it was 2019. I was still racing go karts. I was a big Hudson O'Neal fan because he was real young and he was doing, what I dreamed of doing at such a young age. So I really looked up to that. My go kart rap actually was themed based off the rap that he was running, and it was really cool. We went to Raceway 7 one night when the Lucas guys were there, and he gave me a door panel and signed it. So I think I've always been a big Hudson O'Neal fan because of that reason. So I always like seeing him do good. I have the door panel signed, hanging up in the wall, all that. And it was awesome just being so young, having that experience.
We touched on Sharon a little bit. What's your favorite racetrack of all time?
Favorite racetrack that I've raced at?
Raced at or been to? Can be either or.
I mean, you can't beat the Eldora experience. Being there for the Dirt Million was awesome. Getting to be down in the pits in the infield and be able to watch from down there was really cool. If you stand down there in 1 and 2, you get to watch the cars come by, and then you can look up and see on the Jumbotron them going through 3 and 4. So if you're ever at Eldora and get the chance to do that, it's awesome. Favorite racetrack I've ever raced at, though? I mean, we've had the most success at Sharon, but you can't beat Lernerville. I love racing at Lernerville, especially like Firecracker Weekend and all that. It's really a different feeling. Same deal with the Stampede. Like those big shows at Lernerville, you just can't beat them.
So through your career racing, what's been your favorite moment since you started?
Definitely. So I guess a little bit of story time. I think we were leading the points in the Rush mod series in 2022 by like 1 or 2 points. So it was pretty close between me and Aiden Cipriano. And it all came down to the Stampede. And going into it, I thought that I had no shot of winning it because I had a football game Friday night. So I was going to have to come from dead last on Saturday. Well, thanks to a buddy of mine, Corey Sines, for flipping over in the super late model heat race. He gave me time to actually make it from my football game to Lernerville to run my heat race. And I think we started second or third row and threw a Hail Mary slide drop that I probably shouldn't have thrown. Didn't work. He crossed me over and we ran second, but that was really cool making it back and then being able to. So we started on the pin in the feature, and I was 16 years old, 15, 16 years old, so I'm nervous, and I jumped the start. As the pole sitter, jumped the start. I don't know how you manage that. So, jumped me back a row, restarted third, fell apart, fell back to like fifth, and then pulled it together, drove back to the lead, and was able to win the Stampede, which secured me the championship. If I had to pick my favorite moment, that would have been it, winning the championship, because all the weight, of the nerves of racing for a championship, at that point, once the race was over, as soon as I crossed the checker, it was all over. It was just finally like, oh, we did it. Just such a big relief. That was really cool in that moment.
What made you a racing fan? You can pinpoint one moment where you're like, "Wow, this is the greatest thing ever."
Just being a kid. I mean, just being a kid going to the racetrack at such a young age. I think what was really, really cool was getting I was never afraid to talk to anybody. So I'd go around the pit area and I'd go talk to every driver because I just wasn't afraid to do that. So I'd be 6, 7 years old talking to all these guys and watching them race and getting to know some of these drivers and I know them personally and then watching them race. I think getting involved in the racing community at such a young age, watching my dad race growing up was such a big deal that made me really want to do it. Every time I'd go to the racetrack, I'd think about how much I wanted to be them. So definitely just being around it at such a young age just inspired me to want to do it.
And so I'm gonna change this last one for you because it's it doesn't quite fit because you're so young. So I guess and you got a whole racing career in front of you here. What do you think would be the dream for Ben Easler? Say, where would you want to be in 5 or 10 years, racing wise?
I mean, the dream's always been to do it for a living. I'd love to be able just to travel the country racing dirt late models for the rest of my life. I mean, I've dedicated my entire life into trying to do so. I obviously have backup plans to stuff as I'm getting ready to graduate and all that. But the dream is to be able to, just race for a living. Everyone always asks, "So, are you gonna be a NASCAR driver?" And it's like, well, I kind of took the wrong approach to do that. But I mean, you see guys who came from dirt being, doing that all the time. I mean, that's a big thing to say, but I mean, just any form of racing to be able to do it for the rest of my life and at a high level and, doing it for a living would just be incredible. That's the dream.
All right, before we wrap up, Ben, make sure you thank all your sponsors and everybody that makes this possible.
Yeah, first off, I got to thank my parents for putting up with all my bullshit. We traveling all around and it takes up a lot of time, a lot of money, and being able to have them by my side, that's huge. My dad, my mom, my stepmom Amanda, my brothers, my grandma, everyone's just so supportive of me and my program, and that means the world to me. Ronnie, crew guy, he's awesome. He's been busting his ass in the shop nonstop to get us ready for 2025. And then I really owe most of our success to Timmy Latta. He's been huge, making my transition into late models seem not as hard as it probably should be. He's so knowledgeable, and him and I have clicked since day one, and it's really awesome to team up with somebody who loves doing this just as much as you do, and really is trying his best to put me in the best position to succeed. So me and Timmy, shout out to him. He does a great job. All my sponsors, Crawford Custom, 3C Graphics, Titusville Ford, Light Bros Racing, Pork's Body Works, Sagertown Hardware, Shepherd's Lubricants, Russ King Racing, Lakeside Lanes, don't let me forget any. Hair Today, just landed a new sponsor, so shout out to the Swing Factory in Conneaut Lake, their golf simulator. I spent a lot of time over there during the winter when you get bored, and got to know some of the staff and the owner real well, so I'm glad to have him on board. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Happy Hill Farm. I think I got everyone. If I forgot anybody, I'm sorry. But just mainly all the fans, all the racetracks, Rush Series, my family, my friends. I have some of the most supportive friends too. I gotta shout them out as well. I have friends that come to the racetrack and help me, friends that come to the race shop and help out there. So my buddies are some of the most supportive guys. I gotta thank my boss at work for letting me go out and race whenever I'm needed to. So shout out to them. But just everybody who has helped me along the way, I owe them a big thanks.
It does take a village and all the sponsors to help you, but I think the most exciting thing that is happening is this youth movement in our sport right now, especially in our region. For the longest time, it didn't feel like there was a lot of new blood coming in all divisions. I felt like when I started, we were kind of going through a lull where we were kind of not seeing any new cars. Maybe one guy would show up, get discouraged maybe a little bit, but now we have this bright and awesome movement, and I'm glad we can share a little spotlight here especially on you. You made it look way too easy to make that jump from a modified into a late model. I'm sure a lot of guys are jealous. They can make that move. So good luck here in the next season. Good luck at down at Volusia. We hope to see you around. Hopefully you don't be a stranger here at State Line.
Oh, I won't be. And real quick, not to drag this on, but you said it perfect about the new blood. I got to give a big shout out. When we raced go karts, there was a pile of us who all ran go karts who are all now racing full size cars. So it's awesome that we all were able to, make that jump together. Like the Gibsons, Andrew Hammond, Ariana, one of my closest buddies, Brendan Warner. Everyone just doing such a great job at transitioning, and it makes me proud to see that we all were able to come from, that same background. Andrew Beatman. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it's really cool that growing up as kids, we're all able to race against each other at the go-kart level. Now we're all out doing our own thing in full-size cars. So that's really awesome to see. So hats off to all them guys for making the transition, doing great jobs themselves. Definitely makes me very proud to see that where I came from, everyone's making it and being successful.
All of them, really, all of those young drivers. I think the Gibsons might be the only ones. And listen, and I'm not on the conspiracy because that Erie's the one night it looked like they won. My eyeball said they won. I think if they were any closer, it would have been a freaking tie. But to watch all of you guys be up front running against the big dogs, the long timers, the gatekeepers, it's inspiring to know that the racing, we're in good hands, right?
Absolutely.
And if anybody listening to this podcast hasn't really checked out any of the drivers that Ben has mentioned, make sure you do this year. Keep your eye out, listen to them, because there's a lot more success coming from those go-kart kids. Not so much kids anymore, but they're pretty good. But Ben, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for
Can't
having
wait
me.
to
Appreciate
post it.